I'd like to call the January 19th Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Our first order of business is the invocation by our County Manager, Ms. Sharon Griffin.
Thank you and good evening, Chairman Bright and Commissioners. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come before you and conduct the business of Onslow County. Lord, please be with the commissioners tonight and their deliberations, and bless them with strength and guidance as they address the items on tonight's agenda. Bless our citizens, first responders, and those defending our nation. Bring our community health and peace. May all we do this day bring you honor and glory. Now, with deep respect and reverence for the faiths, beliefs, and traditions of those gathered here today, join me in a moment of silence. Amen.
Our pledge by Assistant County Manager Sherry Slater. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll acknowledge, I don't think we have any elected officials here. Did I miss anybody? I think the sheriff normally is here, but he's not here tonight. We ask that all in attendance please set your cell phones to silent or vibrate mode. The board offers the public one opportunity to speak during the meeting. Comments should be limited to no more than 5 minutes and may be on any issue upon which the Board of Commissioners has control. In accordance with the board's adopted rules of procedures, commissioners shall reserve responses, if any, for the commissioner's comment period on the agenda. I would now entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion to amend the agenda to remove item 5A, Piedmont Natural Gas Easement Agreement.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion to amend the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye. Motion to approve the
Motion
agenda
carried.
as amended.
Second.
All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We'll now to move on to public comment. I think that's item 3.
Consent agenda, Jack.
Okay, that's right. Approval of items. Is any item any commissioner want to remove from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we'll go to item 3, public comment. Ms. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this evening, we do have 2 of our citizens signed up to participate in the public comment period. I would remind everyone who is listening and in attendance that each speaker has a limit of 5 minutes. So at the 5-minute mark, please have a seat. We would ask that you come up in the order that I call you, which is the order in which you signed up. As you approach the podium, please speak into the microphone and provide your name and your address. We also ask you to direct your comments to all of the Board of Commissioners and not one individually. And do keep in mind that they do not respond to comments now, but rather at the end of the meeting when they do their commissioner comments. And at this time, I would like to welcome Mr. James Harp of 446 Sullivan Loop Road.
Thank you. My name is James Harp, and that is my address. I had a number of things that I wanted to say to the commissioners tonight, but it will take me more than 5 minutes, so let me try to condense it. I'm a retired Marine. I spent almost 29 years on active duty, many of them right here in Onslow County. Marine Corps Air Station, New River. I did 3 or 4 tours of duty there. I was here in 1983 when the bombing happened in Beirut. I was here in Onslow County when the city of Jacksonville and the county of Onslow worked together and came up with a plan to purchase through taxpayer dollars 273 Bradford pear trees and plant them along Highway 24 as a living memorial to our lost Marines. I now drive up and down that stretch of Highway 24 almost daily. And this morning, as I was leaving the traffic light near the Piney Green Shopping Center to go towards Jacksonville on 24, I saw the excavators and backhoes out there ripping down the Bradford pear trees that were planted in remembrance of those Marines. I was very angry. In fact, I told one of the commissioners a few minutes ago, I started to stop and try to talk to one of the construction folks to find out why this was being done, and I realized I would have traffic backed up forever if I did, so I didn't. Anyway, I had some things I had to do, and as soon as I could, I called what has become for me, after Hurricane Florence, what I feel is my only reliable source of true information, and that is the county commissioners of Onslow County. After I got back from Hurricane Florence, I had a flooded basement, and I spent 3 days trying to get answers from the city of Jacksonville and the state of North Carolina, because the city kept referring me to the state, and the state kept referring me to the city, and I got no answers, and I got no callbacks until I called Commissioner Jack Bright. And he answered most of my questions during my very first phone call and told me that either I or one of the commissioners or the clerk will call you with the other answers when I get them. And you did. And so that's the first call I made. I called the office of the clerk, and she told me, I think that's Ms. Julie Wand, she informed me that the commissioners knew absolutely nothing about this. And that frustrated me immensely and angered me that my commissioners knew nothing about it, knew nothing about something that it affects the life and feelings of hundreds, if not thousands, of your constituents. So, I now know that you have found out about it. Who you heard it from, I don't know, but I'm glad you do. I have 2 questions that I'd like to put to you that I'd like to get answers on, however you deliver them to me. First is why none of you knew that that was happening today. And second is, when are you going to ensure that there is some kind of an agreement in writing between the city of Jacksonville and the county commissioners of Onslow County, so that if something like this happens again, you will know, so that when one of your constituents calls first thing in the morning and is angry and frustrated, someone will be able to say, well, here's what's going on. I now know that the Beirut Memorial Grove was in place as a replacement for those trees, with the idea that it would already exist before the trees died. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harp. I will now call Ms. Shirley Bryan of 111 Viola Court in Swansboro.
Won't take me a minute to get there, but I'm coming. Good evening, folks. My name is Shirley Brown. I live at 111 Viola Court, Swansboro, just behind the middle school. annex, which is now 6th grade. There used to be a lady by the name of Miss Norris that lived there. I've been there since '83, and I've known her until she passed away. And someone purchased her house. I watched that house being torn down with no regards to the secrecy of what it meant to the area. I now watch someone planning to build 7 duplexes on that property. In a very quiet community that has a school, well, actually has 2 schools because 6th grade is in one campus and 7th is in the other. That has 2 schools with a lot of children. We had houses built on that road a few years ago. The traffic is horrendous, and there's a lot of children. This duplex bothers me because we didn't know that you could put duplexes in the neighborhood. When I bought my property down there, a gentleman by the name of Sergeant Major Walter Kelly sold me a piece of property that he had planned on putting apartments for teachers in the area, and he was turned down. We bought that property to keep it as it is, just quiet neighborhood, no new buildings, even though we have some. My problem with this duplex is trifold. One, I resent someone coming into my neighborhood and my neighbor's neighborhood, putting 7 duplexes of God knows who's gonna live in them. The second is, there's no septic tank to go in there, therefore a sewer system has to be done. I called on WASA, I called the sewer company. They don't service that particular area. So it's my understanding that an above-ground sewer system is going to be put there with a pump. So now I'm looking at infringement on the noise to the environment. I don't know how you all perceive this, but all of the above-ground pumps that I know of are in commercial areas, not residential. The next thing is the gentleman bought some property on the other side of the road that he planned to annex that sewer system to and put more houses or duplexes in the area. Now, I don't know where you live, but I know where I live, and I wouldn't want the noise in my neighborhood. The next is that there are little streams that go behind that school if you know anything about it. And those streams go underground across Swansboro Loop Road. And eventually those branches dump into the White Oak River. Now, we've had problems with the White Oak and sewer and everything else down there. Don't want any more. And the next thing is water comes from 24 over by Walmart around all our property, dumps into those streams, go underneath that road and into the White Oak River. We have big rains and we get flooded because people put things in those drainage areas. All right? My question is, and I can go on about this scenario, my question is, what responsibility, who's responsible for issuing the permit for the 7 duplexes? The next is, who's going to be responsible when sewer dumps into the White Oak River? I'm not preaching about this. I'm trying to teach you all that it's going to come where that White Oak River is going to die because of development and sewer. Never mind the number of people. So I ask you, find out who issued the permit, because I've called everybody I could, and what does the Environmental Protection Agency say about this? And I'm going to ask them too, because I don't think it's fair to the community or to Swansboro. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Yes, sir. That is the end of our public comment period. And I will point out to the commissioners that Ms. Bryan has been in contact with staff members, and we are researching the situation.
I was going to ask if that was in the Swansboro town limits or not.
Sounds like it's in their ETJ.
No, may I answer that?
I'm sorry.
One side of North Road is ETJ. That side is not.
I think
We'll check on it.
we're gonna check on it, and we will look into that, and hopefully provide you more information, Ms. Bryan. Thank you. Excuse me. Yes, Ms. Bryan.
Okay, we'll move on to item 4, Jacksonville Onslow Economic Development presentation. Mr. Mark Sutherland's going to give us that presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the commission, on behalf of my chairman and my board, we really appreciate the invitation to come here and give you an update this evening. Since 1970, we have operated as a 501c6 nonprofit trade association, and we're funded by investors. About 65% of our budget comes from the private sector and 35% from the public sector on the average year. We basically have these 4 legacy business lines that we work along. All of them have the end goal of attracting wealth and investment to Onslow County. And for the few minutes that I have with you tonight, I'm going to give you an update on these 4 business lines. First of all, the one most people like to talk about up front is industry recruiting. We're actively working 6 projects right now, and I'll start with Project United. We've been working on this for about 2 years, and we expect a groundbreaking this year. It's a high-tech garment manufacturer that's coming here from Rhode Island, and they're consolidating 5 smaller factories in the U.S. Southeast into one big one there in Holly Ridge, creating about 60 jobs and $3 million worth of private sector investment. Private Wind and York sort of go together. They're both foreign boat manufacturers, one from Canada, one from Australia. Each of them promises to bring about 50 jobs and a couple $1 million of investment to Swans Point Marina in Hubert. We have had site visits from both. Most recently, Project Wind was there in November. We're the last man standing in Project Wind in North Carolina. We have a little bit of competition with another site in Virginia, but I feel real strongly that one of those is going to pop this year, and we're going to have a project announcement. Project Revive is a biomedical equipment manufacturer, and they also do distribution. They bring 35 really good jobs here. They're interested in Jacksonville Business Park. There's an existing building in there that would be an adaptive reuse, and we are their preferred location for North Carolina. So that's really good news. That one we had a site visit on in September. Project Stoney, I know you're all familiar with that. We've been working on that for 8 years, and it finally got a letter of approval from the commanding general of MCI East, and it's working its way through the Department of Navy's real estate bureaucracy right now for an approval of an easement in the North Carolina Railroad, or the Marine Corps Railroad property, that'll allow Project Stoney to proceed. So we'll have an announcement on that. You never can tell, but I'm sure it'll be this year. Project Skywalker is only 2 or 3 weeks old. It's a pretty exciting project because our airport was pre-selected by the client as meeting their cursory needs, along with 4 other airports. So we got a chance to perfect a response to their RFP a couple weeks ago. That is a airline pilot training center as well as a aviation mechanic training center that'll result in about 200 jobs and about $75 million of investment, and that doesn't include 40 Embraer 175 jets. I think they're about $20 million a piece. They need a couple 100,000 square feet on airport property and some student housing nearby. We're awaiting word for a February site visit. That's the next step in that. That project, and I don't know why this happened, but we only had about 60 hours to respond to that, and it was a very complex response that required a lot of work. I just really want to thank Sherry Slater and Chris White for just working really hard above and beyond the call of duty. That response wouldn't have been turned in on time. So I feel good about it. Okay, now, business retention and expansion. It's a whole lot easier to keep a company here than to recruit one. And so that's this other business line that we do. We get hundreds of calls every year from all of our existing industries, and they cover a wide-ranging array of topics. None of them are the same, but there's some themes, and I think they're worth mentioning here. And the first one has to do with labor. 90% of the calls that I get from our existing industries has to do with a shortage of labor, okay? So we take a look at the long look at our labor pipelines. How many people are graduating from high school and how many people are coming out of college. And, the biggest pipeline we have here in Onslow County is transitioning service members. Somewhere around 7,800 Marines and sailors every year leave active duty at Camp Lejeune or New River. 50-60% of them have no intention of sticking around here. They're going back to school or going back to work in a family business in Iowa or whatever. But a large number of them, an increasing number of them, say in their surveys, if there is a position here for them, they would consider sticking around here. The trouble is we've never really had a good way to hook those people up with our employers. And the number's impressive, but we really, my question was always, what does that mean? Well, 3 or 4 years ago, the Defense Department came up with a Skill Bridge program. And it was originally for technical training schools and community colleges to make sure they had skills that rendered them employable on the day that they got out. But a couple of years back, they added another tier to it, and it's for internships and apprenticeships, where they can come out in the community for their last 6 months of active duty and actually work in one of our companies and gain skills, gain on-the-job training, gain certifications. The bill's paid by the military. So that's as good a deal as I've ever seen in workforce development. And Gulfstream Steel was the first one to do it. They're like the poster child. They did a really good job on it. They set the gold standard in partnership with a community college. And we have about a dozen more companies that we're going to get on the map with Skill Bridge in the next few months. Second biggest challenge that I hear from our employers these days is housing. When they do find the right employee, and that employee can't find a place to live, that employee leaves. So I had one of our builders tell me the other day he hired a guy that was retired from the Navy, and because he was retired from the Navy, he could live on base. They have some vacant housing on base. And if not for that available base housing, he would have lost that employee as well. So housing's a big deal overall, but it's a particular concern in the hub zone, where we do have hub zone contractors that can't meet their 35%, number. 35% of their staff has to live in a hub zone. If we don't have housing for them, they can't live there. So a couple of years ago, we started working with some developers, some in town, some builders in town, some developers from out of town to address that problem. And we've come a long way. In 2 years, I expect a really good project announcement on hub zone housing this year as well. The next thing has to do with reusing our old buildings. And the owner of the Shipyard, Richard Johnson, called me right before Christmas. Said that one of his companies is going to create upwards of 100 jobs out there to build a new product, and it's going to require a lot of revisions to the shipyard. So we're working on the first phases of developing a building reuse grant package. A lot of details to come that I don't have yet, so more to follow on that, but that's another example of trying to keep the companies we have and help grow, help them become more productive. And finally, I think most folks are aware that Cape Fear Precast was kind of left hanging with regards to their broadband, and they need a competitor in there. And we worked we worked with the county to get some indulgences to use wireless solution in there, but we couldn't get other subscribers to do it to make it affordable. Spectrum offered to run fiber to Cape Fear Precast, but they need 3 subscribers and they have 2. So maybe when the shell building number 2 is built out, they'll have a 3rd one. But it's just one of those examples of how their productivity is being hampered, by some challenges that we can help them solve. Okay, product development, that's basically sites and buildings. Project Frontier is a speculative building. That's the next one up. We have come up with a solution for that, and it's a public-private venture that we propose between the city of Jacksonville and Joe Ed and a private developer, with an eye on having that completed in early 2023. We have grant funding coming from North Carolina's Southeast region. That's our regional economic development partner that's helping us out there. Camp Davis Industrial Park, Phase 2, the town completed the purchase of that land last week, Friday morning, I believe. And that gives us 8 more lots down there in the industrial park, 4 of which are already spoken for. We anticipate a groundbreaking there in the spring and the completion of construction in the fall. This idea of an industrial parkway is in the concept development phase. We've had a couple of successful meetings with landowners and stakeholders down there for the addition of another 300 acres or so adjacent to Camp Davis. And of course, that's in response to the continued demand that general location has for industrial investors. The Swans Point Shipyard, I've mentioned a couple of times already. That's really a hidden treasure. There's nothing else like it in North Carolina. That's 60 acres on the Intercoastal Waterway, flat. 15 acres of it's being used. And Project Wind really brought it to our attention that there's nothing in Virginia, there's nothing in South Carolina that really competes with it head to head. So, like I said, I expect a project announcement or 2 at the shipyard this year. Last thing we do is we help people with technical assistance and networking. These calls come every day. Like I say, they're all over the map. But here's a couple of examples of things that we can't handle in 1 or 2 phone calls that don't get resolved right away. One of them is our long-standing participation with the Greater Topsail Area Chamber of Commerce. We participate actively and regularly in their Economic Development Committee meetings. We are providing analysis for them. They're getting ready to have a big visioning exercise in April, and we're spearheading the analysis that will inform that visioning exercise. Swansboro EDC is an association of business owners. They're also Joe Ed investors. They're in the early stages of forming a nonprofit EDC of their own, a committee of 100-like organization. We also provide them with networking and analysis. And finally, the town of Holly Ridge, we engage with them regular beyond Camp Davis on their strategic planning and project management, given their small staff. And last year, we managed their community's pandemic response fund. Our nonprofit was able to do that, so they didn't have to create one. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my remarks. And again, I really appreciate the time on the agenda this evening.
Okay, thank you. The board have questions for Mr. Sutherland?
Yeah, I do. I have one.
Hey, Paul.
Project Skywalker. Why is it you bypassed our manager and bypassed assistant county manager with your emails and didn't go straight to the manager or the assistant county manager? On Project Skywalker. You didn't go through the manager and you didn't go through the assistant county manager on that project. Why did you not go to them and went to Chris White and to Royce Bennett?
Yeah, well, so lots of these projects come in that just don't make sense for us. They don't make sense, and he knows it as an airport director. I wouldn't. Lots of them come in. Most of them we can't handle. The requirements are beyond our capacity to help. We don't have the infrastructure or the other things that come along with it. So I always start with Chris. Is this something your airport can do? If he says no, then we don't waste anyone else's time.
That's not the point. The point is, why not go through the manager?
Why didn't I ask the manager about that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Habit. I mean, Chris White's a board member. He's very active, and he's very accessible, and he's very available, and he can probably tell me whether it's going to work for his airport or not. He always has.
Mark, that doesn't sound very well, and the thing about this is that the issue is, does Chris White work for the manager, or does Chris White work for you?
Chris White works for the manager.
Correct, and that's why we think you should go through the manager with all of your stuff. And I believe in economic development, and we'll back it 100%, but some of the stuff that's going on with the correspondence and communications needs to be a lot better than what it is. That's what I'm asking you to do. That manager is there for a reason, and so is the assistant county manager who's in charge of the airport. To bypass them and go to a commissioner and then bypass and go to Chris White is just not right. She could have got you the same information that you got from Chris or what you got from Royce Bennett. That's all I'm asking. I'm asking you to go through the manager, and that's what you should be doing. That's just my opinion.
Mark, how do you think the hub zone housing needs to be addressed? Because we're getting more people coming to Onslow County than we got housing for. We got 700 additional troops coming to MARSOC that there's no houses for. We got 1,500 contractors coming to Camp Lejeune for private contractors for the economic $3.6 billion of repair. What is the private sector thinking about housing, and have you contacted any of them about building and making these houses available, since you've got that listed on one of your bullets here?
Yes, sir. Specifically in the hub zone, it's about reuse. It's about redevelopment. It's something that's not been done on a large scale ever here, and so that is going to take some innovation. But the idea that the infrastructure is already there, the roads are already there, and the stormwater solutions are already there, will make it easier to yield more housing and a denser housing solution than is there now. So density in areas where we already have infrastructure is one of the solutions that we're talking about within the hub zone, because there's really no place else to sprawl in there.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about, and I think you touched on it over here in the back, about the Holly Ridge Park, Industrial Park.
Industrial Parkway.
And we have Burton Park here. We already got water, sewer, natural gas. We got stormwater management. What kind of movement has Joed done to get development in here in these lots? It's close to the airport, close to Jacksonville. What have you done to sell these lots and move forward with that?
Well, we do the same here as we do with the other three industrial sites in the county, that being Camp Davis and the business park in Jacksonville and the Shipyard. So it's all on our website. We do offer that up as solutions for some projects that we get in. We just there was this rush of phone calls about a year, 12 to 18 months ago. The phone was ringing every day about Burton Park and people wanting to put flex space in here, and we didn't have a building for them, and they were scrounging for existing buildings. But that's one of those phone calls. That's where, working with Hanson Matthews, the buyer came for shell building number 2. But we haven't had a call or a response to the identification of a Burton Park property in probably 9 months.
What do you think the reason is for that?
Well, we talked about that last time I was here. I think part of it has to do with the with the hesitancy of an industrial investor to invest in a park that's not purely industrial because of future encroachment issues. So perhaps it's something that we would look towards things other than industry, even light industry, because even a light industrial investor may have future uses or may want to protect the value of that zoning in the future. And when we show them that, when they don't even need us, they check it out on the LoopNet, they see, that they see what it is. So perhaps we should refocus who we're marketing to out here.
A big point of emphasis from the state legislature was broadband across the state. Did you see anything coming out of the state legislature which grants greater flexibility for companies trying to get broadband or opportunities there?
So some of the companies that I stay in touch with work in the rural areas doing those last mile projects, working in areas where people don't already have internet. So most of the great money, the great grant programs and things along those lines won't work in a place where we already have service. In this case, Cape Fear has service, but they have really bad service. And the internet provider, the sole internet provider wanted, I forget what it was a lot of money. It was $50,000, $60,000 to run some fiber from ABC next door down to their place. And it just wasn't practical. We definitely need competition in there. We did have a wireless solution that would go on the water tower, but it's a little pricey for one subscriber. I think when we get a third subscriber for Spectrum, and there's some competition along that street over there, the prices will normalize. But the wireless people were going to bring them twice the service at half the price. Half their monthly fee, and none of that's $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 upfront charge. They were gonna eat the infrastructure because that stuff doesn't cost a whole lot to put in.
I noticed that you had Topsail Chamber of Commerce. Have you had much interaction with Jacksonville Chamber of Commerce and the city of Jacksonville? Jacksonville has a ton of vacant businesses that people have closed up their business and left those businesses unoccupied. And the city of Jacksonville, they have to provide, even though the business is not there, they still have to provide infrastructure, like water and sewer that's tying up their capacity. Have you made any progress in getting some of these buildings occupied by businesses and what they call preventing urban sprawl?
So I'm only aware of one industrial building in the city of Jacksonville that's vacant, and another one that's willing to vacate if we bring Project Revive. I'm not aware of retail. I don't really keep track of small retail spaces and things like that. But we get calls for places that they can do light industrial flex space, and that's just something we don't have, but we're going to address it with Project Frontier. That's the direction that's going to take in the city. Yeah. But we do stay in close touch with the city on things like that. We are trying hard to market that vacant green building.
Some of this information that you provided here for us today is good, and I appreciate that. I don't remember seeing any kind of monthly or quarterly reports from Joed to us. Maybe some of the other commissioners have seen them. I haven't. Has any of you seen any progress reports or?
No, we send a weekly newsletter out now. We actually went to a weekly format about a year and a half ago in response to a feasibility study we did. A lot of people want to know what Joed did. A lot of people that consultants interviewed said they just don't know what Joed does. So we started telling them every Friday what we do.
Have we been getting responses?
Sir, I think he's referring to the email that we receive.
Okay.
We talked last time y'all were here, and I talked to Matt Ray, and we mentioned more communication and meeting some. Has there been any movement on that, or are you interested in getting in touch with Ms. Griffin? And I don't know if we can do it quarterly or how many we'd want to do it with, but I think communication and talking about some of this, that I know some of this can't go out because of what it is, but I think the communication may help clear up some things and maybe even create a vision of what we want Burton Park to become, since we have the issues with the heavy industry, and then we have this side over here that looks like it will be much more commercial, and that if we can have a shared vision and working together in that, and that communication would be much better. I don't know if that's something that you would be interested in, but I think everyone here would be interested in at least quarterly of hearing some of this and keeping up with some of this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would be out here every single day if there was someone to talk to, right? If I know you don't have that kind of time, but I'm all about communication, and we do have some challenges, and it's great. We fully support it. Everyone on my board supports the same thing.
Because it's the issues and some of the problems we had communicating with North Topsail Beach. The minute we were able to get into the room together, it was amazing how we were able to rectify a lot of those issues and moving forward in a very positive light. And I think this would be the opportunity to move that way, working together and communicating with what's going on and what's taking place, because communication clears up a lot of issues and problems there, because I think we all want Jacksonville, Onslow County to be successful, and business coming in and houses being built, and where the need is, and have those conversations, because I think just that is important. Maybe some of that has taken place, but I think a more upfront at the table, if nothing more than just conversation of what's taking place. So we can maybe get on that and schedule something down the road. We're in January. I think maybe get something May, June on the calendar to sit down and just get an update of where everybody's at and what's going on, and some vision of Burton Park that we all can sit at the table and discuss.
I'm at your service anytime.
Okay, any further from the board? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Item 5, we removed that. We amended the agenda to remove that. There's some numbers that legal has got to get together before we finalize that agenda item, and that'll be brought back at a future board meeting. B is technical assistance funds. Mr. Warren will be presenting that.
All right, good evening, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and Commissioners. For your consideration this evening, we have a contract amendment for technical assistance funds. The State Division of Soil and Water has provided a contract amendment to our local county soil and water office to amend the technical assistance funds for fiscal year 21-22. This proposed amendment would replace the original technical assistance contract that became effective in July of 2020. The total funding amount in the proposed amendment is $118,368, which includes a state contribution of $59,259 and a local match of $59,109. And the local match will be met through in-kind services provided by the local soil and water department. As respectfully requested that the Board of Commissioners consider approval of the proposed technical assistance contract amendment, and if approved, authorize the chairman to sign the necessary documents.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Social Work Case Management System, Mrs. Sanders, our DSS Director.
Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. The item you have before you this evening is for the purchase of a web-based case management system for the Social Work Division at the department. The Child Welfare and Adult Services divisions are currently operating as paper-based systems. It is critical to the efficiency and the effectiveness of those divisions to have a technology-based case management system. Northwoods Consulting Partners has developed Traverse, a sole source software system specifically for social workers in child welfare and adult services. Northwoods has the experience, knowledge, and technology to successfully operate a case management system for the department. If approved, American Rescue funds would be used for the initial purchase of the software package in the amount of $230,791. And for fiscal year 22-23, it would cover the annual cost, which is $161,500. And thereafter, the department would cover the cost within its budget. This is for a 5-year contract. It is respectfully requested that the Board of Commissioners consider the sole source purchase of the Traverse software program through Northwoods Consulting Partners in the sum of $876,791, and if approved, authorize the chairman or his designee to sign the necessary documents on behalf of the county. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
A motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. So you're a second. After the ARCA funds is used, will we be able to apply for grants to maybe fund in future years for this project?
Well, one thing that the department has put in place is we would add it to our plan that we submit to the state, and we would be eligible more than likely for reimbursement at between 30% and 40% each year of the total cost.
Under the state program?
Yes, sir.
Talking with our manager, Ms. Griffin, I think some of the savings is almost intangible with the effectiveness and efficiency that we're going to be able to bring to the table, which is probably going to lessen the hours needed to work because of the consolidation. So I think we'll see in the long run, we're going to see a lot more effective, happier people, and maybe a little less stress on the folks that work for you under not only your direct supervision, but those that are out there in the field doing the job and communicating back and forth. So I think it's something that I know y'all have talked about for a long time, and the ARPA funds have come through and is able to take the brunt of the cost, and we're going to feel the can't think of the term now, but we're going to reap the benefits in the long term.
Absolutely.
Is this a storage thing like on the cloud or something?
Yes,
That
sir.
goes with it or something?
It is web-based.
Yeah.
And we've worked with Northwoods since 2011 on our economic services side. So we're fully aware of their capabilities and their customer service.
No written reports in the field to come back to the office to write another report to go with the third report has to be there. It's all going to be done in the system, taken care of, and that's good stuff.
Absolutely.
Any further? Will we have a motion and a second? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Sanders.
Thank you.
Item D is Hammocks Beach State Park grant. Mr. Norm Bryson, our Emergency Management
Good
Director.
evening, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and Commissioners. The item before you tonight for consideration is a pass-through grant from the Homeland Security Grant Program in the amount of $17,500 for us to conduct an exercise at Hammocks Beach State Park in the April timeframe of this year. The premise of this exercise is to work with federal, state assets in performing helicopter rescues, much like what we did during Hurricane Florence back in 2018. In conducting this exercise, this will be the first time that State Highway Patrol, North Carolina National Guard, and the United States Coast Guard has worked together in a helicopter aquatic rescue exercise. So it'll be the first time it's ever happened in the state. We will probably bring in over 100 participants from around the state to work at this program, and we're very excited about having it. We respectfully request that the Board of Commissioners consider approving the grant and authorizing the county manager to sign the memorandum of understanding. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Motion to approve.
Second?
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I participated in one, I don't know when it was. You had me come down there and I watched what was going on. It's interesting to watch those helicopters work. the highway patrol chopper had no downwash, but the actual Coast Guard, which was a larger helicopter, had so much downdraft or downwash, I guess they call it. It was interesting. They didn't use any live people, but the highway patrol picked up live rescuers out of the water, but the other ones picked up dummies. It was an outstanding operation what they did down there. It was just amazing to watch them work. But that downwash, I guess it is off that Black Hawk. It's actually not a Black Hawk, but same as a Black Hawk.
I believe it's called a Jayhawk, sir.
Jet Hawk. It was an outstanding operation to watch that. I was out in the boat with the marine fisheries, and I rode around with them watching people being picked up out of the water. It was pretty neat, guys, if you get a chance to go this year. Thank you.
Is this going to be a comparable exercise to that, or is it going to be larger, about the same thing?
It'll actually be larger than the one that we had several years ago. I think that was in 2017 when we conducted that one. This one, by bringing the National Guard in, which we did not have them before, will be much larger. We're also working with the state of North Carolina to also use this exercise to bring teams in to work on their skills in incident management. And there will be several people there in class conduction signing off task book for them as well.
National Guard, huh? Sounds like a military takeover to me, but I'm just making a joke.
Any further? A motion and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Norm.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Senior Services Building Construction, Ms. Reese, our Finance Director.
Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening.
Just pick one, we'll go with it.
It's been a long day, sounds like, Brenda.
I haven't had anything to drink, really. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. The Senior Services Building Construction Project will consist of an approximately 14,000 square foot addition to the Onslow County Government Center. The project will be connected to the Government Center at the rear of the existing facility, and additional remote parking will be provided. The facility will include a large activity room, fitness area, congregate nutrition, kitchen, adult daycare, meeting rooms, offices, and support space. The total project will be $7.5 million and will consist of capital outlay in the amount of $6,759,600 and professional services in the amount of $740,400. Part of the project is being funded by the ARPA funds, with the remaining project being funded with funds released from prior debt service. Respectfully request approval of the project ordinance for the Senior Services Building Construction Project and authorize the chairman to sign the ordinance on behalf of the county.
Motion?
So moved.
Hear a second? I hear a second.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, is this expandable? Because I know Commissioner Scott wanted to make sure this was expandable. Is this building going to be expandable?
It's going to be an expansion off of the back of this existing
But I think
building.
what Commissioner Scott wanted to know, will we be able to expand that 14,000 square feet if we had to do another 3,000 square? Is that correct, Walter?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I believe Assistant County Manager Sherry Slater can add to the answer if you would allow that.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Thank you. So we can always add to our existing plans before we go out for a contract with a construction agency if we deem that it's that the space is not sufficient. We do believe, based on the preliminary designs, that we're in a good place with the plan design that is was submitted to us. So I think that we're in a really good space with the existing building is larger, but there's a lot of space that's not used very well. It was designed 20 years ago with very different senior citizens in mind. And so the things that, the types of activities, the types of engagement that they now have is very different. And there are spaces over there that aren't being used very efficiently. And we believe in the new design, while it is smaller, it actually has better use of the space. But yes, sir, there is space here on the property that we could add if we need to, either before we start construction or sometime later in the future if that was the decision made. Part of it is simply a financial, I will build whatever size the commissioners want to approve funding for but we also want to be very respectful of our taxpayers' money and our responsibility to the community. So we are looking forward to building a top-notch, state-of-the-art facility that also is respectful of the financial burden and making sure that we're doing right by people.
Well, plus, Sherry, you're going to be able to use this facility also for some of the rooms that are in this to help out with the senior citizens.
That's absolutely correct. Thank you, sir. The addition would be set so that senior services would be able to use the chambers, as most of our departments do now for larger events, but they would be located in the building. So daytime events that don't interrupt the board's business would be able to be held here. Also, some of the smaller rooms that we use for meetings would be able to be used by staff who need to have some of their unit meetings, things like that. So they would get a lot of, there's a lot of co-use facility ability here in this building. The staff break room, for instance, is large enough to accommodate the additional staff of senior services as well. So that would be, the co-use of the facility would be huge here.
I thought we were talking about the architect drawing up the plans with the idea that it could be expanded later if we wanted to. I thought.
That's right, that's what we were asking.
Okay.
I believe we did approve the architect's contract to have an option for an additional area. Sherry, would you like to expand on that?
Sure. So the architect's fee is set up on a, essentially the fee for the architect is based on the size of the building they're designing. So they did not want to give us a fee for a 17,000 square foot building if we ended up building 14,000 square foot, because that's not very good value for the county. So the plan at this point, with the commissioner's direction in mind, and based on what we believe the cost of the facility will be, is to design the 14,000 square foot, and at the time that we are ready to make a decision about putting it out for bid for construction, we will reevaluate the cost. And if it looks like the cost of construction is at a point where we can add space, we can then amend the project to do that. So there is that ability before we make a decision to go out for a construction contract.
Sherry, I think you might be missing the boat on this one, because what I'm saying is we have a shell building that's 30,000 square foot. We can expand that another 30,000. All we're asking is, and I know that's what Walter's asking and the other commissioners, this building should be able to add on to it. So what they're saying is the structure of the building, I don't think it should be much more cost if you're just going to add on to it, stretch it out if you had to stretch it out.
Right. And Commissioner Buchanan, I do understand what you're saying, and I do understand that we want something that could potentially be expandable. What this item is today is to get the ball rolling. So we're just at the threshold. We have to have a project ordinance to pull these funds that were set aside for debt service that we ended up consolidating from the projects. And we want to go ahead and pull these ARPA funds in and stay within that budget, that cash out of pocket budget, to get the ball rolling. We are going to ask the architects to make it an expandable space. I told Sherry maybe, an attic that's not finished, just to give, kind of an analogy to a house, but something that would enable us to expand as our senior citizens population grows. But we want to set the project ordinance with the funds we know we have, and then we're going to go to the architect, we're going to see what comes back, and we will bring those to you, share them with you, and look at what our construction costs are at that time. As you know, right now, we've got probably an artificial inflation of construction costs. So right now, we're just trying to stay within our budget. Is that correct?
We need this ordinance to move forward, is what you're saying, basically.
That's correct.
Okay.
And this is to pull those funds into the accounting structure that we follow, basically, for finance, so that we can have the architect begin to do the work and we can do the RFP. This is a necessary legal step. We can go back and change this or amend it, and we can ask the architect to go ahead and make a more expandable area. We did hear you on that. Okay?
Thank you.
Well, the 14,000 square feet would be what we actually are looking at that we need now. And if we do any addition, but I think maybe some of us are missing the point about what we already have here that we can use. So if you add the square foot of this room the square foot of the kitchen, the square foot of the other meeting rooms that we have, we're looking at already having available, if you add the square foot of this room, this is a tremendous amount of square footage right here that they would need for special events like we have over there. So that would give us, I don't know, I don't know what the size of this room is. I don't have any idea what the footage would be, but this would be considerably a big addition to the building. But I think what Paul and Commissioner Scott was talking about was also talking about making it necessary and available that if we had to add on, we could tack on to the back of it. But that's something we'd have to do later on anyway. We're looking at 14,000 square foot now,
That's correct.
and then tacking on whenever we need the space.
That becomes a discussion in the design phase, and we got to get
That's
this
right.
done to get
This
to
is
the
the
design
beginning.
phase.
Yeah, this is the beginning. We're not laying the foundation yet. I'll also point out that one of the consent agenda budget transfers that was on there was to provide the funds that we need to add a bathroom to Building 3, which is back behind the Government Center. That's an area that contains all the workshops for our asset and facilities management group. And they indicated that they don't need the office suite here if we provided bathroom facilities there for about $160,000. We can actually move that department down there, and we're freeing up another office space that can also be shared with those folks who are right now at the multipurpose complex. So what we're trying to do on a bigger scale is make better use of all of our space, and to do so within our budget. So,
I mean, I'm listening to everything everybody's saying, and I'm digesting everything, but in a nutshell, I see what you're saying. This is a catchment. The ordinance is a catchment so that we can attribute those funds to a particular project. All the inner dealings we can deal and work out later, about the additions and stuff like this. But this right here, if I'm understanding it correctly by listening to everybody, what everybody's saying is, I think we're getting in the weeds right now.
mm-hmm.
I mean, really getting into the weeds about the expansion. What we really need to do is get this approved for a catchment to get this thing started, and we can make amendments and adjustments as we go along. Am I correct?
You are correct, and we would rather come back and transparently ask for the expansion and talk about that later, rather than to come in here and ask for something that we don't have the funds to support right now.
Yeah, so that's my understanding of it. I have no problems with this, especially with the senior services building. But I personally think we're just getting in the weeds of things that we don't need to be getting in the weeds. This is just kind of like laying the foundation where we need to be and where we need to go. We can fill in all the details later. I'm just coming from a layman's standpoint. It makes perfect sense to me. So that's my take on it. And I think it's a good idea, especially with the senior services, and to make use of our space here.
Okay, any further? We have a motion and a second.
Do we?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Section F, Ms. Slater, Senior Services Project Architectural Service.
Well, thank you for approving that last item, Commissioners. That helps with this one. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and Commissioners. Before you this evening, I have the architectural contract for Smith Sinnett Architecture, PA, to design and perform construction administration of the Senior Services Project. This RFQ was issued in accordance with the statute and was selected through a scoring process by our purchasing department. Purchasing Director Laura Jones was in charge of that. Smith Sinnett Architecture has presented the best, most qualified contract. We would respectfully request that the Board of Commissioners consider approval of the contract with Smith Sinnett Architecture, PA, in the amount not to exceed $740,400, and authorize the chairman to sign on behalf of the county.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Slater. I think Emergency Operations Center expansion is yours too.
Well, yes, sir. With your permission, I'll go one more time. We also issued a request for qualifications for the expansion of the Emergency Operations Center. This project was funded through the American Rescue Plan Act that the commissioners approved the project ordinance several months ago. The design would be for an extension of our current Emergency Operations Center, as well as renovation of the existing fire station that the county is working to acquire. The funds, the request is that the Board of Commissioners consider approval of the contract with Smith Sinnett Architecture in an amount not to exceed $979,935, and also authorize the chairman to sign on behalf of the county. I should comment that this RFQ was also released in accordance with statute and reviewed by the same guidelines that the other contracts were reviewed by.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, all motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Slater. Now we're going to get into handling dishes, panhandling ordinance. Mr. DeSelms, I guess you'll present that to us.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. At our last workshop, it was the consensus of this board for staff to create a panhandling ordinance for the board's review and approval. We had prepared an ordinance. This ordinance largely mirrors the one with the city of Jacksonville. We did that so that there wouldn't be confusion amongst the citizens from going inside the city limits and to county limits. We worked also closely with the sheriff's office to ensure that whatever ordinance we presented to this board was something that was enforceable. I've been in contact with Sheriff Miller as recently as today, and he's certainly in support of the ordinance because of the traffic and safety concerns related to panhandling. North Carolina General Statute 153A-126 gives you the authority to adopt an ordinance regulating panhandling, so it is respectfully requested that the Board of Commissioners consider approval of the proposed panhandling ordinance, and if adopted and approved, authorize the chairman to sign the necessary documents on behalf of the county.
Motion to approve.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I just have one question. Does this, since it's an ordinance, does it have to be a unanimous vote?
If it's going to be adopted on the first reading, yes, sir.
Okay, any discussion? We had this in a workshop, so we kind of went over everything. Motion and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We got an ordinance. When will this be effective?
Today,
Now?
sir. It's effective as of today.
Okay. All right, thank you. We are at item number 6, consent agenda. Nothing was moved from the front to that item. So now we at manager's comments, Ms. Griffin.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I will be brief this evening. We are continuing to watch the weather forecast, as I shared with you in earlier updates. I have Norman Bryson here if you would like to hear him update you. I can tell you that in the most recent advisory that just came out from the National Weather Service, we are expected to have freezing rain and possibly a mix beginning late Thursday night into the early hours Friday. And some of our more coastal areas might not get the freezing rain till the afternoon, but in Richlands and some of the areas around there, it appears that we could have freezing rain earlier in the day. And this is likely to change just to snow overnight Friday night. We're not getting out of freezing on Friday. So Saturday also we will continue to have mix of precipitation. This is of course according to the forecast, and we know that sometimes we get surprises around here. But it's likely that we'll make an announcement sometime tomorrow about some shift in operations for most county offices. Obviously, our emergency services, law enforcement, animal services, our landfills, some of our services are always open, but we will have some of our county offices that may have curtailed schedule on Friday. And I would encourage the public to check their weather forecast, certainly check any alternate heating options that they have. And any of our citizens who may have medical devices that they must have that are electrical and dependent upon power, they may really want to consider a backup plan, maybe call a caregiver, call a community outreach or the United Way, and try to get some assistance ahead of time so that they're not stuck. If we get ice, even a quarter of an inch, we're likely to have some power outages. And I believe we also have a Jones Onslow individual in the audience that could answer that if he's still here. So, but we are expecting some of that as we go into the weekend. And we do encourage everyone to please stay home if the road's ice over. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner comments, we'll start with Mr. Scott.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for what they've done. It's good to be back. Be safe and take this weather that we're fixing to have very seriously. If you don't need to be out, stay home. And I thank everyone for allowing us to serve. And God bless you and good night.
Thank you. Mr. Price?
I'd echo those sentiments as well, to be careful this weekend with the winter weather concerns, and also to remember the Marines and their families involved in the accident this afternoon in your prayers. Other than that, have a good evening. That's it for me.
Thank you. Commissioner Knapp?
Just a couple of things. I want to touch base. First and foremost is the prayers for the Marines, their relatives, the lost loved ones today, and the Marines that have been injured. It was a horrible accident. These Marines are part of our community, and we need to keep them in our prayers and our thoughts, and we need to do everything we can to support them. The second thing is, you all have seen the reports on COVID-19. If you haven't got your vaccination, I highly encourage you get your vaccination. A clear rumor up right now, the county commissioners do not mandate or do not want a mandate for vaccinations. It's everybody's individual belief and their individual thought process. So, but if you haven't got the vaccination, I highly encourage you to do that. There are many people getting sick from this. There are hospitalizations. In fact, I have one of my best friend's wife is in the hospital right now in Texas, and I don't know how it's going to turn out. She's being intubated now, and I'm just praying for her, and it just really upsets me and my wife, because his wife is my wife's best friend, and I'm his best friend. So my heart goes out to them, and we need to take this seriously. If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's fine, but take the proper precautions. That's all I'm saying, for everybody here. And the reports that we put out, the COVID report that Ms. Griffin puts out that she gets from the health department, we don't have all the answers to all the questions that people are asking. If you ask me to tell you how many were unvaccinated or how many were vaccinated, how many are the Omicron variant, I can't tell you that. The Omicron variant, they don't test all the samples, okay? I'm giving you numbers for your information, or I should say our health department and our county manager is giving you numbers for your information to keep you aware, whether you agree with it or not. If you don't agree with it, read on, move past it. Plain and simple. But there are lots of people out there that rely on those numbers, and they kind of make their judgment based on the numbers and the infection rate and et cetera. And there are a lot of people that have their relatives in homes, okay? That's a consideration too. They're very concerned. So, when people start asking questions, we don't have the answers, we're going to tell you. I don't know. I'm not a medical expert. So there's that. The other thing I want to talk about, the last thing I want to talk about is listening to Commissioner Buchanan, and, Sharon Griffin is our county manager, just so that we get everything on the record to let everybody know. She's in charge of the entire county. Okay, we are commissioners elected by the people. It's to serve as the governing board for the budget, to make decisions per North Carolina general statute. Okay, so we're technically her bosses. She has 7 bosses to answer to. 7. It's hard enough to answer to just one. So when there are projects that come aboard, and at least this is my thinking, I'm an old military guy, law enforcement guy, when it comes to presenting something, you don't want to backdoor somebody by not telling them what's going on when they're in charge of the program. That's my opinion. Sharon can tell you that, when I have questions about a particular department, who do I call? I call her directly, I text her directly, I call her on weekends, okay? just to find out, what's going on with this department, or how should we proceed? Because I'm not the subject expert matter in a lot of these departments. That's what we pay Ms. Sharon Russell for, or excuse me, Sharon Griffin for. That's her job. And so when there's something that comes up that incorporates something like the airport or any other type of project, it is imperative that she be made aware of it. That's the way I think, that's how I feel. And I just wanted to share that with you because I think you're doing a remarkable job, okay? The whole staff is doing a remarkable job. If I have a question about social services or mental health or something like that, I call Sherry. And Sherry finds the answers out for me. If I have a question with emergency services, I call Norman, okay? And people have to keep that in mind. Okay, we're running a little city here, or I should say Sharon and her staff are running a little city here in Onslow County. And she gets paid to make the decisions. She gets paid to make the judgments. And therefore, I feel that she should be included in everything that we discuss, period. She shouldn't be blindsided by anything, no matter who you are. If somebody comes to me or another commissioner about a particular project or something, I immediately call her and brief her on it, let her know. That's the way it should be done. And I just wanted to say that because I just wanted to get that off my chest. And again, to tell you my appreciation for what you do, for what the whole staff does, for everybody that's involved. And the last thing is, I don't care what your weather report says, Norman, it's going to snow. I'm just telling you, I'd rather take the snow than the ice. So I'm praying for snow, at least 3 inches. So,
Robin, is that you doing that, or is that your wife telling you to do that?
what? No.
I heard her on talk radio this morning.
No, she wants snow, but I'm like her. I want to see a little bit of snow, get out of here in 2 hours, and go back to normal. But on a serious note, be safe during this weekend. If you don't need to go out, please don't go out, and stay safe and stay warm. And God bless. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Bennett.
Yes. Ms. Griffin, I think this would be a good opportunity to clarify the actual procedure here. Do you expect every outside organization to bring every question and proposal directly to you, or is it okay for them to go to the department head and let the department head escalate those issues to you through the chain of command when that is appropriate?
I think it depends on the circumstances, but typically, I mean, it would have been preferable, honestly, Commissioner Bennett, if Mr. Sutherland had reached out to me about this one, or just included me on the emails that he was already sending out to other folks, because it gives me the opportunity to lay the groundwork for the legal review, the rest of the commissioners to be informed about it. And particularly in a case like this where it's time sensitive and we've been identified as one of the folks that they want to send in a proposal, time was really of the essence. And in this case, I was out sick, and it would have really been helpful for me to have been able to throw that to Sherry a day or so sooner, because she ended up having to work tremendous amount of time to kind of play catch up on that. So, and the rest of the board was not able to be informed. So I kind of answered your question, I kind of didn't. Of course, there are outside organizations. Like, for example, North Carolina Emergency Management goes directly to Norman and Stacy. They don't come through me. And then Norman and Stacy would copy me. But any time that I can be part of that communication chain with outside partners, it's very helpful, because that enables me to let our elected officials be the first to know and to be able to get the information to make the best informed decisions.
Okay. Well, you're all invited to the JOED Board of Directors meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30. And the staff is invited also, and you can learn a lot about what's going on if you want to come to a meeting. Hope everybody has a good evening and it's safe, and take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Buchanan?
Pretty much everything's been pretty said, but I'm like the rest of the board. The military that were in that accident today, God bless them, and to their families, and we pray for them, everything else. And I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes, but I want to say prayers go out to Billy Sewell. He lost his mom, And Billy Sewell's been very active with all this board, every one of us here on the board, and he lost his mom. I guess it was, today was it, I think it was, Jack, that we seen it happen. But I want to thank everybody for being here, and be safe, like everybody on the board just said. We got some bad weather coming. Please stay home unless you don't have to be on the roads. Thank you.
Vice Chairman.
Just reiterate the thoughts and prayers out for our military personnel involved in that today. No doubt everybody feels that way in the military town and county that we are. Also, I want to take a opportunity to congratulate Commissioner Scott. He got a letter from the High School Athletic Association either today or yesterday, selecting him as one of the wrestling officials in the state championship wrestling tournament. So that's an honor to be selected for that. So we're glad, happy for him. Mr. Harp, appreciate you coming out tonight. In 1983, I was much younger, but I do fully. That's right. But I remember, I think I was a 7th or 8th grader when the Beirut, and I remember the trees coming in, and I remember years we've had them blown over, and other times they've been removed for whatever reasons. But I'm very thankful that we've got the grove that was built that will, I think, will be sustained and will not face the DOT and all that. And I appreciate you calling, and the compliments to Chairman Bright and answering your questions. And I know Ms. Swan fields a lot of questions, and some things she's not aware of until somebody calls, and if she's not aware of them, we're probably not aware of them. But being a military town and men and women that retired from it, things like that can cut to your core real quick. But I'm glad that you're now see the grove that I don't know was advertised when it was done, because I actually had to stop there several months ago and read the sign that what it was. So I was glad to see that. And we appreciate everybody coming out tonight. And Norm, make sure you're not conjuring up a tsunami with these practices. Last time you did some kind of practice, Florence showed up, and I will hold you personally responsible if a tsunami comes to the east coast of North Carolina. And I do want people to know, in my best meteorological expertise, when the ice and snow comes from the south, it usually starts as freezing rain and ends up with lots of snow. So make sure you're prepared for the weekend and what it could become. And Commissioner Knapp wanting snow has really got me concerned, but we won't hold him accountable for the shutdown of Onslow County. So thank you all and have a great night.
I thought you were referring to your hot wind when you were talking about it.
I want to comment a little bit about the trees that was being taken down out on 24 in response to Paul Buchanan called me, I think it was the day before yesterday, and said, "Hey, what's happening with the trees out here?" I said, "What trees?" He said that the Bradford pear trees on Freedom Way. He said they not taking them up and moving them. He said they just taking them and just destroying them. That was the first I heard about it. And then I didn't know what they were doing, so I figured that it had to be a DOT because it's on DOT right away. But 2 or 3 things come into play there. First of all, it's Department of Transportation's project. I've got a memo where they actually officially notified us today about it right here from Ms. Swan. So she had no clue. She don't drive out there. She lives in town and she comes out here, but I didn't have a clue. Even when Paul told me they were already taken up when he let me know about it. But we don't have any oversight over Department of Transportation. There's another thing too. The eastbound lanes out there are regulated, believe it or not, by Camp Lejeune. That's part of Camp Lejeune. The westbound lanes are regulated by the city of Jacksonville, and the Beirut Memorial trees are put up there as a remembrance for the Beirut Memorial. Believe it or not, I was on the Beirut Memorial Committee when those trees were put in. General Downs and Doris Downs and that group that I work with, Abe Rosen. I was on that board where we put the trees in. I was a liaison from the police department. So I know about the trees. I know how they were funded, and I know how they were put in to recognize each person that lost their life in Beirut. Well, Hurricane Bertha came, Hurricane Fran came, Floyd came, destroyed those trees. Those trees are so fragile, the least little bit of wind breaks them and just destroys them. And then there was one time where they were redoing part of Camp Lejeune and, part of Lejeune Boulevard, and they had to move them because there was new construction. So they pulled a bunch of them up. They had this huge machine that come out and actually took them up by the root, and they actually located them where they were being destroyed at now, down a little further. So the city of Jacksonville is in their jurisdiction. We don't regulate the city, but the city of Jacksonville said these trees are not going to sustain the weather because they're so fragile. They're not going to sustain DOT having to relocate them. And they had done a lot of replanting of those trees. So now they've got that memorial garden to represent each one of those people that lost their lives. And those trees are not where people can run over them, and they're the type of tree that weather does not bother them like the Bradford tree. So that is the story. Jacksonville normally lets us know about anything that affects us, and they normally let us know about anything that we have correspondence with.
Just, if I may add, Chairman Bright, apparently the city of Jacksonville was supposed to be notified before the contractor went out and did what they did for North Carolina Department of Transportation, and they did not notify them when they were supposed to, because they were going to make an announcement to the public. I think they did anticipate that people would become upset and concerned, and so that announcement was not made. And the first I noticed was coming into work this morning, and I was like, what happened to the pear trees? So, and I think Commissioner Buchanan and I had a conversation, but we did finally get the announcement later today, and I apologize to you for how it made you feel. Thank you.
Well, the good thing about it is they have memorial trees now in place of the ones that's been replaced. Doris Downs passed on. She would probably turn over in her grave if she knew those trees were being taken up and moved, but I think she'd be just as pleased on the other side to see that the city has actually built a memorial to commemorate those trees and some permanent living things to represent the troops that was lost in the Beirut Memorial, Beirut bombing in Beirut, Lebanon. But other than that, I would ask Steve if just a yay or nay, does the school made a decision on Fridays in
We're evaluating tomorrow morning. Right now, it looks pretty questionable what's going to happen on Friday. But we're looking at Friday morning. Tomorrow morning, we're planning on making some kind of announcement.
Okay, we normally post a lot of things on our internet about county government and county business, and the biggest thing is coming to our meeting like this, and sitting in here. And if you don't come to the meeting, we still televise it live on G10, and we also stream it live on Facebook. So if you just keep up with it, if you can keep up with it that way, but we welcome people to come to our meeting, and we welcome people to come up here and speak their mind about stuff where we have any issues with it or not.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if the public could have heard Mr. Meyer's response, and because he's not mic'd, so I just wanted to share what Steve had said on behalf of Onslow County Schools, that they are still assessing it, that based on the current forecast, it doesn't look good for Friday, but they're going to reevaluate in the morning. They're having a staff meeting. They hope to make an announcement tomorrow to provide parents with the adequate time to make plans, correct? Okay, perfect. I just wanted to reiterate that since it wasn't mic'd. My apologies, Chairman.
And I also would hope that the folks that's watching will pray for those troops that were involved in that collision this afternoon. Don't know a lot about it, but it don't sound good to me. It sounds like, we have a lot of people that was hurt. I want to share one other thing. I've got a friend that lives in Florence, South Carolina, and she's a charge nurse for the big hospital she works with there. And Paul, you know her, it's Rhonda Halbert.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She sends emails to me all the time. And with what Commissioner Knapp has said about the COVID, she sends me a copy of the hospitalizations in her hospital, who's on ventilators, who's been vaccinated, who's not been vaccinated, and then the people that has died. And those numbers that she has is very parallel to the numbers that we got. So we're not in this situation by ourselves. It's a situation that's happening across the country. Those numbers are so much. I could take those numbers and lay them over top of the Onslow numbers and the other hospitals, and percentage-wise, they all look the same. And I can tell you that the vaccinated people and the one that's boosted none of them are on ventilators and none of them are on ICU, the ones that's boosted. Now, the ones that have been vaccinated are in ICU, but not on ventilators. And the death toll is 0 for boosters down there. And I don't know what they are here, but just for the sake of saying that we're not in this by ourselves and we're not going through this by ourselves, this thing is reaching out and hitting people. We have people that's out. We have services that we're still trying to maintain and provide that the taxpayers expect of us. So we're going to do our best to provide that service as long as we can, and as long as we got the staff to do it. Other than that,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are.